actually had invited Sana 3 years ago to speak in March 2020. And that was a very fateful day when all events and auditoriums were shut for the next 2 years in Bombay. And so we're very lucky to be able to get her again, in spite of a minor reschedule, which happened last weekend. But we're still back on track. Another fun fact is that this is the first time a mother and daughter have spoken at a Creative Morning. So Sana's mother, Shimal, was also one of our last speakers before we closed down. She's here today. So yeah, great to have it all running in the family. I won't do a big introduction of Sana, but she started Diaspora in 2017. It's a direct trade spice company, and she's been working with hundreds of farmers, trying to ensure that they get a much higher wage than what you normally earn. I mean, especially in India, we don't appreciate workers and farmers as much. She launched it in the US to actually bring quality spices to new markets, and she's going to talk about that a little bit. I'm sorry, my voice is going at this point, but yeah, on to Sana.
Thank you. This mic makes me feel very powerful. I'm good, I'm all mic'd. Hi everyone, hello. So, as you all know, I'm Javeri Kadri. I'm a South Bombay kid, I think like a lot of people here. I'm the daughter of 2 architects. I'm an art school graduate. I'm a retired, extremely angsty photographer. Hashim can attest to that. And most recently, and probably I'm best known though, as the founder of Diaspora Co. But before, I'll get into what Diaspora Co is in a little bit. But I want you guys to remember baby Sana eating the mango. Okay, we're going to refer to her at multiple times because a lot of the work that I'm doing and a lot of when we talk about pride, I'm always thinking of her. She's who we're talking about. So before we get started, I want to understand who's in the audience. So photographers, 3-4 hai, okay. Creative directors. Okay, you guys will learn that that's a very important profession for me. Graphic designers. A lot. Okay, good. And business owners. Oh damn. Are you guys sleeping? Are you okay? So now that I know who's in the room, and NGO, incredible, even better. So now that I know who's in the room, I think that my story really is how did a mediocre, to be honest, 20-something photographer turn into a business owner? We definitely have to shout out my Gujarati genetic business sense because we know that art school definitely didn't teach me that. And I think my hope is really that my story can serve as proof, if you'd like, no obligation, that you can do this too. That if this baby mango eating Sana can start a business and build something, truly everybody else in this room can. So, can we go to the next slide? Thank you. All right. So I started Diaspora for 3 reasons. The first was this version of me, which was I was 6 months out of my first job, straight out of college. I was extremely underpaid. I was very, very bored and I was very depressed. And I remember telling my dad, who was right there, that I wanted to wake up every morning and answer big questions. What I didn't realize is that as a CEO, your main job is to provide OTPs for people. And so, I'm not really pondering life's big questions, but at 23, I did have the taste and the vision to know that I wanted to be a creative director. That's why you creative directors were like my idols. I wanted to pull different mediums of storytelling together. I wanted to take photography, writing, agriculture, like everything I had learned about in college and put it into something, to know what that something was. And every time I looked at these creative director job descriptions online, I would realize that I was lacking roughly 15 years of work experience. So if anything, I would have to be 38 before I could do anything that sounded vaguely interesting. I was working at a grocery store in the marketing department selling oranges, and it was dreadfully boring. But if you're 23 and if you're lucky, you have this thing called audacity, right? So if it hasn't been beaten out of you by capitalism or heartbreak or your most distant relatives' opinions of you, you have audacity. So I had spent my senior year of college researching the spice trade. That's where this idiot man comes up. His name is Alfonso de Albuquerque. He's one of the colonizers. So I was researching the spice trade, and we all learnt about the spice trade or colonialism to some degree in school, but we didn't really learn about it, you know. There was a little bit of like, oh yes, they gave us trains and then they were bad, so we got rid of them, but it was quite gentle. So the more I learned, and the gist of it for me was that, one, Alfonso de Albuquerque was awful. And he built a spice trade. First there was the Portuguese, then there was the British, then there was the Dutch, there was the French. Every one of them came and fucked something up. But they built the spice trade not just on profit and exploitation. I think the most disappointing thing out of everything was that they built it on comically bad spices. So during the height of the spice trade thriving between the UK and India, your pepper was likely to be 5 to 9 years old and be 80% rat feces because there was rats on the ship. And that was allowed, and they still thought it was this like prized thing. Back then, pepper was equivalent to what a Louis Vuitton handbag is today. Like, it was very much the status symbol of the 17 and 1800s. So anyway, at 23, I had audacity and I had this quite bad haircut, but had this big jalebi smile. And after studying the spice trade for about a year, I said, shall we rebuild the whole thing? We'll start from scratch. And I was an art major, so I was like, we'll make it an art project. So we will take this unjust, stale spice trade and we will make it wildly idealistic. We'll make it super sexy. We'll make it delicious. We'll make it equitable. We'll pay everybody well. It doesn't matter that I didn't make a salary for the first 3 years, but we'll pay everybody very well. And you know, if I have to work for the rest of my life, I might as well take on colonialism. Like, what a great project. So next slide, please. Okay, so it took 7 years, but in a gist, this is what we do. We source the most delicious spices from any of the farms that we work with. So like, for example, with Sauf, I couldn't find fennel that was the most delicious thing on the market. There was always this one Greek fennel that was better than any sample I could find. So for 4 years, we didn't launch fennel. Eventually, the Gujaratis came to the rescue. Our dhania farmer, who is based in Shedubhar, Gujarat in Saurashtra, he said, you need Sauf now. What does it need to taste like? So we sent him samples of the Greek Sauf, and he tasted it. He said, oh, my bar has seeds that are like related. Give me 2 years and I'll manage. That was in 2019. It took him 3 years, but in 2022 we launched Haryali fennel, which was the most delicious fennel that the world has ever seen, and it was very much a variety bred for flavor. So that's the foundation of what we do. The next one is paying farmers 3 to 5x the commodity prices, which is where you realize that I can't be full Gujarati. Something got messed up there, and for me that's really about saying that these farmers are experts. They're incredible at what they do, so we have to reward them as such. So 3 to 5x the commodity price is basically the price that they need for their business to be sustainable, so that they do not have to take loans before harvest season, so that they can afford to send their children to, if they'd like, an English medium school, so that they can buy a smartphone, so that, you know, if they want to go on vacation, they can go on vacation. It's very much that, like, so they can have the livelihood that we all aspire towards with our jobs. To be frank, that model only works in export. So people often ask me, why don't you sell in India? Because to pay 3 to 5x the commodity price, I have to leverage something, and in my case, it's the exchange rate. Finally, we freshly mill everything. The big thing I realized is that most spices, even, it's not as bad in India, but especially abroad, spices on the grocery store shelf are 5 to 7 years old, which is about the same as it was 150 years ago when the British didn't know anything. And the rat feces content has come down, but now the FDA permits 25% rat feces in black pepper. So the quality still really sucks. But we can go to the next slide, which is probably the most important one. So since 2017, we have been able to ensure higher wages for our 1,000+ farm workers across these 140 farms that we work with. And we've paid a whopping $2 million to these regenerative farm partners. For a company that did, I think, we've ended last year at $4 million in revenue. So that $2 million is a very, very large number for us. And our investors usually think we're crazy, but I think we keep coming back to, this is the point of our work. Like, I built this company for our farm partners, so that's why we're doing this. Okay, next slide. And now, I guess I can tell you lots about Diaspora and you'll ask me lots of questions, but I wanted to talk about the design and the branding and the storytelling because that's who's in this room. So, I guess I wanted to show you these side by side to show you that this was 2017, yeah? This was our first packaging. I'm not a graphic designer, I always hired graphic designers, but you can only guide your graphic designer with what you know, right? And what feedback you're able to give. So this was 2017, I spent $55 on this packaging, yeah? This was 2023, I spent $1 million total. So yes, this packaging is much, much better. Yes, right? It is much objectively better, but it's not really 18,000 times better, which is the price difference between these two. And I think for me, when I see these side by side, what that told me is that Chintu mango eating girl who wanted to be a creative director, she was onto something. There was this like gut feeling inside me that I have taste. I was raised by two people who have taste and kuch karna hai. So really the exercise was, you trust yourself early on, you put it out there, you do it. My first website was a ghatiya Squarespace website. I shot the product photos on this like old school teacher desk, and in the product photos you can see the ghatiya school teacher desk also, but we still sold out of our first harvest, you know, because the concept was exciting. I think my excitement was infectious. And we were like, okay, yeah, we'll buy haldi, no problem. And you know, then you invest and you keep getting better. You add on a team who is much better at what they do than you are, and eventually you get, you know, the version that is very, very fancy. But I guess I want to move now. So I've given you a little bit of backstory, but I want to move to the pride part of the talk and kind of adhere to the theme. So for me, yeah, we can go to the next slide. For me, pride is 4 things. But before I get into these 4 things, I want to explain what pride means for me. So, you know, you saw that mango eating girl and she looked confident, she looked khush, she was eating her mango happily. But that wasn't the reality of who I was as a kid at all. I was very sensitive, I was constantly bullied. I left high school because I was bullied so badly. I was a very miserable child, to be honest. I was like a defined sad girl. And so for me, pride is really like fighting this feeling, the feelings of fear, of smallness, of feeling that I don't matter, that, you know, I was this dark, short little girl who maybe wasn't that cool. And slowly building up that internal voice, like there was that Chintu voice inside that said, actually, maybe you do matter. And actually, maybe what you do believe in, or the things that you believe in have value. And if you choose in trusting yourself, something will come of that, like kuch banenge. So for me, it's not that like puffed up garv hai feeling, it's the trusting that like really, really inner voice. And I think I wrote it down because I don't know if I'll say it correctly, but it's that small voice telling you the world that you want to build, telling you the kind of person you want to be. Listening to that voice is when I'm most proud of myself in my work. So these 4 things that I've outlined are really the four ways in which in my work and my team's work, I feel like we listen to who we truly are, and then that turns out to be really, really successful. So the first one is queerness. I came out as queer at 22. Growing up, I had absolutely no queer people to look at. I didn't know that that concept existed. I discovered that concept existed when I went abroad, which I really hope for all of us is not the case anymore. I think now kids here grow up knowing what that means and knowing that that's okay, and if they don't, we'll change that. But in 2017, there was certainly no such thing as a queer business. And you know, the number one refrain I used to get is, like, what does sex have to do with running a business? Like, why is your sexuality connected to how you're going to run a business? And I really didn't know the answer because I was like a 22-year-old who had just come out, who was feeling very alone in the world. But there was just this feeling that somehow my queer identity and the way that in which I want to build a company are intimately linked. And we wrote this quote a little while ago, but it's really that, you know, for me, queerness is a value system. It's following your heart and really hoping that the world will catch up. It's feeling very deeply that until everybody is free, nobody is free. So when my farm partners would ask, you know, madam, why do you care so much about what the farm workers are paid? I didn't always have the language to explain that, because I know what it feels like to not be taken seriously, to not have a place. So yes, I have a lot of class privilege and I look nothing like you guys, but there is a shared value system of equity here, and that's what we're building this on. This is a bit of an aside, but it's too good. Where No Black No White has this quote that, and you guys know No Black No White, they're a great fashion brand. So they have this quote which is that colonialism was a startup. And I love that quote because the East India Company really was a bootstrap startup that got a unicorn exit by the Queen of England. So for me to center startup culture in running this business would actually go against everything we believe in, you know. So in centering queerness, we're centering care, we're centering disruption, we're centering innovation, we're centering beauty, we're centering the earth and sustainability in a very real way. And I think we're centering this radical idea that there's a kinder, yummier, messier, more delicious world out there, right? But at its core, being a queer business holds us accountable and gives us a rule book to say we owe people better because we owe ourselves better. That's one. Second is South Asian culture and really celebrating it, right? So when you think of chocolate in our 90s, early 2000s childhood, I'll bet other than dairy milk, we all thought about Belgium and Belgian chocolate. When you think about pepper, sure, we think about Kali Miri, we know what it is. There was those catch little dubbies on our table. But often, especially globally, you think about pepper and you think of French cuisine. And I think for me, and the more I study the food system, the more it felt like, hello, why is that the case? Like the Malabar coast is the heartland of where pepper has grown for thousands of years. It doesn't grow anywhere else. Like Vietnam got it from here, the French got it from here. So why aren't we talking about the green pepper fish curry that's made by the Parmeswaran family on the Malabar coast using pepper that their family's been growing for 3 generations? Or, you know, instead of thinking about peri peri masala, which we all love, I love peri peri masala, how come we don't know about Byadgi mirchi being used in the Pesaroti family's tomato chutney, which is this like very famous Byadgi chili recipe that until I visited these farm partners, I had no idea about. So a lot of my desire to storytell around spices and to build this company was about saying that let's center South Asian culture, let's center our stories. Well, I guess our stories is not really true. I think it's saying I am so privileged to be the translator of our farmers' stories. So how do we be as equitable of translators as possible? And I think what I've learned is you have to make the story sexy, right? So you have to take that chutney recipe and take the photo that makes people's mouth water, or make the TikTok that like shows it being made in the family's kitchen. Really just center beauty and deliciousness every step of the way and get people excited. And then third thing is our farm partners, and that's just like this overwhelming sense of pride. That's all the workers on our Pragati turmeric farm. Our Pragati turmeric farm is based in Kankipadu, Andhra Pradesh. It's one of the first farms that we worked with, or the first farm that we worked with. And people often say like, oh, it's so nice, you're helping farmers, like basically you're running an NGO. That's not true. We're not helping farmers because really they are doing all the work. We're very, very lucky that we've been able to find these 140 farming families. They're across India and Sri Lanka, and they're absolute legends. They are developing pesticide-free varieties themselves. They are teaching themselves organic farming via WhatsApp. They are creating fertilizers that are zero budget and closed loop based on just what grows on the farm, that are more effective than any fertilizers anywhere else. And so for me, every time our Instagram algorithm stops working, or our sales are down, or basically something is going wrong in the company, what I have learned over and over is we have to recenter our farmers. If we're able to continue to tell their stories well, we're on track. And that really, in the past year, I let go of my entire American marketing team, and we're rebuilding our marketing team to be completely India-based, because there's been a realization that like, they're it, you know, they're what's most important here. And I think the final one that I want to talk about is community. So I had this very short-lived 6-month marketing job where I was selling oranges in San Francisco, and I learned a lot of terrible rules there, and a lot of them were saying things, there were all these like sayings, right? Of like, oh, the customer's always right, but also the customer's stupid. Or, you have to market to the lowest common denominator. And a lot of the diaspora story, yes, we're a luxury good, we're a high-end product. I'm not catering to mass market. But the lesson there for me was that we are catering, we're going to talk to our customer as though they're one of us. We're going to talk to them like they're intelligent. We're going to talk to them like they're not stupid. We're going to talk to them like they deserve the full story. So they don't deserve to have, equitably sourced on the label, and then you're paying the farm partner like 100 rupees per kg. That's not equitably sourced. Or, you say all natural, and then it's 25% sesame oil in your chili powder. So I think the real one has been telling our customers about the good, the bad, the ugly, when we're struggling, when we're not meeting our sales goals for that month, like sharing everything with our customers and trusting that they'll take care of us. And what we're really doing is we're building this circle of care. So as we take care of our farm partners, they take care of us by giving us like the best spices the world has ever seen. We take care of our customers by really making sure we're giving them the freshest spices, and they always take care of us. And we were a bootstrapped company for 5 years, which meant that cash flow was just disastrous for 5 years. And I can very proudly say that our customers took care of us through all of that. Last slide. So I know I want to leave room for questions about the company and all kinds of things, but I think that I wanted to give you guys something I used to take away, which is the first one is my first business model was a pie chart, which tells you how little I knew about math and business. And it was a pie chart that accomplished so little, but I like swaggered into rooms with that pie chart and said, business kholenge. And then the second one is to be as proud of what you're great at as what you're absolutely bad at. So I have been like shameless about saying finance, operations, spreadsheets, mujhse nahi hota hai. Like, it just won't happen. In the early days, I would fly back to Bombay from America. So my dad would sit next to me and make my spreadsheets with me. And we would sort of figure out, are we gonna be break even this year or maybe not? But I think the thing that I did early and quickly was, before I was making a salary, I was paying people who were much, much smarter than me to do the things that I was bad at, so that I could just focus on the stuff that I was good at, right? And for me, that's the storytelling, that's the branding, that's the bright colors, that's working with our farm partners. And if I had been a little bit insecure and said, I'm not so good at math, but I should be, and I won't be a good business owner because I'm not good at math, I don't think this would have worked. It took being very cavalier about saying, I'm not good at it, so we're going to find somebody who's better at it. And then, I think we've talked about treat your customers like community. I think the give people credit is a very important one that I don't want to sound preachy about, but when you're standing on the stage, you have a mic, you're wearing a nice outfit, it's very easy to feel like, I'm a hero, I did it. And that's not really true at all, right? I have a team of 20 people, we have 140 farmers. In order to put together that packaging that you guys saw of those tins, it took over 2,000 people. And they all did an incredible job at their jobs to pull that off. And I think what I've seen over and over in the business community is the martyr syndrome, is saying, maine kiya, akele kiya. And I just don't think that that's going to work long term. And that means giving people on your team credit, shouting them out on LinkedIn instead of saying, I did that myself. Paying them equitably, and giving your farm partners credit. So I've seen a lot of like gandhi copies of our business over the years, and I always realize whether that copy will make it or not. And that's usually whether it's somebody who's pretending to take credit or somebody who's saying, we've been really inspired by Diaspora Co, now this is what we're going to go out and do. They say that they're inspired by us, I know they'll make it, and they usually do. And then the last one is make it really, really beautiful. So my warehouse team from 2020 to 2023, they say this more like an insult at this point than like a exciting thing, because when I would go to the warehouse to pack orders, I would be drilling into their head, no, each customer needs to get this beautiful unboxing experience. It has to be beautiful. And they would just look at me being like, we're in a warehouse, it's freezing cold, we just want to pack the spices, who cares? But over time, then what we started doing is sending screenshots of opened orders from customers to the warehouse team. and their pride started getting built. And maine pack kiya. Like I packed the tissue paper just this way, so when you open it, the stickers slide out. And now 2023, I haven't visited we just opened a new warehouse in Portland 2 months ago. I've never visited because I've been sitting here hiding. And my team has been training their new team, and all of them repeat every single day, do what Sana would do, make it beautiful. And that's probably the thing I'm most proud of, is that we built this very beautiful thing. So yeah, thank you.